I want to read you a comment that I received. I want to read you a comment that I received, and then we'll start wrapping things down a little bit. But it sort of falls in line with some of the things that we've been talking about here today. This comment says, I love what Reverend Ed preaches and teaches. Now, I could just stop there and just leave and say, hey, see, this guy gets it. But that's not the point of the comment. I love what Reverend Ed teaches and preaches, but it's simply not historic Christianity. It's a great religious outlook. God bless and Merry Christmas from a Jewish friend. So, the idea being here, hey, listen, what Ed preaches, how he teaches, his ministry, this isn't how Christianity historically has operated. These, the dreams that I have, the ideas that I have, the vision that I have, it isn't historic or traditional Christianity. That's probably very true. It's probably very true. Being in the church, whenever you try to make a change, whenever you try to do something new, one of the things you'll hear very often, and this is true for most organizations, I think, but one of the things you'll hear is, well, we don't do it that way, or we've never done it that way, or we tried that once, but it didn't work. Right? Change is really, really difficult in an organization like ours. Like my church has been here for 60 years. It's difficult for us to move furniture around because, well, somebody's grandmother put that there. It's difficult. Like there's an old joke in the Anglican Church. How many Anglicans does it take to change a light bulb? None. My grandfather put that light bulb in there. We're not going to change that, right? Like that's the mentality. Change is really, really difficult because we've attached emotions to the way things appear, to the way things are, to the way things go. We attach emotion to how we do things, to the processes, to the policies. We attach emotion to the furniture, to the candles, to the vestments, to the books. We attach emotion to all of that stuff, and it makes it very, very difficult. And traditionally, coming back to the comment, it's not historic Christianity. No, it's not. Historically, the church operated very, very differently. And to be quite fair with you, here with you and I in this place, I'm, making this up as I go. Because I don't have, earlier we were talking about Jimmy Carter being an example. I don't have an example of a church community operating like we are operating. And so I'm doing my best. But here's what I really wanted to say about that comment. Just because we've never done things like this in the past doesn't mean we can't be better in the future. Just because we always did things that way doesn't mean I have to keep doing it that way. Just because we made those mistakes does not mean I need to keep making those mistakes. I don't need to keep doubling down on the sins of the church. I don't need to keep doubling down on the way the church has always operated. I can let it go. We can let it go. And we can let it go without giving up what matters the most. We can let go of the things that drag the church down. We can let go of the things that cause the church to look with suspicion upon others in our communities. We can let go of the things that put up barriers for our neighbors to become a part of our community. We can let go of the things that put up barriers that keep members of our community from taking on spiritual roles and leadership roles. We can let go of those things that keep people down. We can let go of those things that raise up certain folks and oppress others. We don't have to keep doing things the same old way. We can change. And we can change without letting go of those things that matter most. When Jesus came along and started teaching, if we're looking at the Gospels, and if we look at what he said and we look at what he did, when he came along and started teaching, especially if you look at the Sermon on the Mount, and he says those perfect words over and over and over again. He says, you've heard it said that this. Well, I say that. Oh, you've heard it said this. Well, I say that. You've heard it said not to. You've heard it said you should. Well, I say this. In the way he delivers those words, he gives us license. He gives us license to say, I see how you've done things, but I say this, or I hear how you've done things, or I hear what you teach, or I hear how you've acted, I hear how you've behaved, I see what you've done historically. Well, I say this. He gives us license. He gives us license to let go of previous ingrained understandings and methodology, to try something new, to try something else. In many ways, to go deeper, right? Like, just because we let go of things doesn't mean we're saying, oh, well, and now I'm not going to, this is going to be a very shallow service. Just because I let go of some of those ways, or I get rid of some of those things, doesn't mean that we're getting rid of what makes us come alive. It's quite possible we're going to stop doing things and we're going to go deeper. Just recently, just before Christmas, I purchased a set of Sanctus bells. Now, those bells are altar bells. Some people know them as altar bells. We use them. A very traditional thing to do. Ringing the Sanctus bells are a very traditional thing to do. And I brought them in for one purpose only, to grab people's attention. Okay? And that's what they were for. So in the church, you would have the priest would be holding up the elements, and they would be going, they'd be praying over the sacraments. And at one point, the priest would hold up the bread or hold up the wine, and somebody would ring these Sanctus bells, and they'd ring them 3 times. And the reason was to get everybody in the congregation to stop doing what they were doing and to turn and to look up. Pay attention to this moment. Well, in my church, I don't have a whole lot of people doing anything. They're not talking. They're not having conversations. They're not, checking on the weather. They're not even checking their phones. They're sitting there, heads down in a book, because that's how we've always done it. We've read along, and so we have our heads down in this book. And so as I'm up at the front I'm holding up the elements, nobody's looking. Nobody's looking up. And this isn't an arrogant thing on my part that I look so good in these robes, please look at me. This is, please see the gift as it's being offered to you from God. Please see this bread, see this cup. Understand what this means and understand what this is anyhow. So now Danny, our subdeacon, he rings the Sanctus bells. And sure enough, everybody stopped and they looked up. Anyhow, all this to say, we're not beholden to history. Just because we've never done it this way doesn't mean we shouldn't. Just because historically we've done it this way, just because historically we've taught like this, and just because historically this is who we've been, does not mean we are condemned to continue doing those things, those ways, being those people, being that church today. We can be more. We can be more. We can be so much more. Amen.